Good afternoon. We're going to cover this week's watch list, the week of December 7th. If you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in my bio section on Twitter and StockTwit. So it's there if you need it. Now, I already have a bullish and bearish setup, and usually what I do is, if you're new, I create a bullish list. If the market is strong, I usually use that as a reference, and if the market's weak, I usually use the bearish list for a reference of what to watch. So that's how I've been doing it, and that's how I do it. So with that said, I got Baba up on the bullish side. Now, it does. If you look at it on the daily's in the middle, weekly's on the right, and the hourly's on the left. But technically, it does look, kind of like it's gonna possibly make a cup and handle right here. I mean, you could even say that it even looks bearish on the weekly, or having like an inverted cup and handle, like the cup and then inverted. So I mean, you get different looks. I mean, you can even say possibly head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I mean, it's not the prettiest, but it's there. But I'm leaning towards this on the bullish side, especially if the market's strong. I mean, even though it did pull back, I mean, it had a big gap up and it pulled back. So, I mean, no big deal. But it held the hourly middle Keltner channel, which is a 20 EMA. It did hold that. It did close above it. So, I think that if the market's strong, it's probably going to make a run to 280, and if it does manage to make a run to 280, it's probably going to end up filling the gap to 290. So I would definitely watch Baba this week, especially if the market is strong. I would watch it over, let's say 269 for a push to fill this gap right in here at the 280, as you can see on the hourly, and 280 would be the area to watch. If it can get over that, if there's a lot of momentum in the market, it's probably going to make a run and close that and get to 290. So definitely be watching that. Now, Facebook is another one I'd be watching. It did close above the middle Keltner channel on the hourly, on the daily, and on the hourly it's got like a descending little wedge going on here, and that does look like it could possibly fill the gap right down in here. But if the market's strong, it's probably going to end up holding this 277 area and probably reversing. So if it does end up gapping up, I would definitely watch it over 282 for push to 285, even to the 290s. Now, if it does manage to get over the 290s, it's probably going to make a run for 300. But also be aware of that if it does fill a gap and the market's weak, it could definitely go down to 270. So it's going to be the market's direction is going to have a big impact on this. Plus, if you look at SPY and the techs are like off sync. They're disconnected. The SPY is going up and a lot of the techs are going down. So we'll have to see what happens with that. So we'll definitely be watching Facebook. Now, another one I have is really very oversold. That's Splunk. I've been kind of watching it after it had this big gap down. Usually you get the gap resistance right here at the 170. Usually what happens is when there's a big gap down, they'll come back up, eventually retest the gap. But because it gapped down so much and it actually rebounded pretty well, and it's kind of holding this 160 area, so I would definitely be watching it over, let's say 163 for a push to 170. Now, usually what happens is they usually test the gap resistance at least once at 170. So, but because it's so fairly close to 170, it could actually break through it and get into the 175 area. So I would definitely be watching Splunk for a possible reversal this week on it. So but is also get more room on the weekly. It did bounce on the what was the low, 152. You get this area right in here in the 140s. It could go to more downside, but I'm more interested in a reversal on it. Next we have Netflix. Now Netflix is just, look at the weekly. It is just bouncing in this area 475. So it is kind of flagging right here over the middle Keltner on the daily. Same thing as Facebook, that is just get like a little bit of a descending wedge. If it does manage to hold this area and get over 500, again, it could possibly push and fill this gap. Did it fill right here? It's pretty close right there. Maybe maybe $1 off, but you could definitely possibly see 520, even 540 on Netflix if it does manage to get over 500. So I would watch Netflix this week. Lily we played already from Friday. I mean, you can even see right here that it's getting ready to break out. So I would definitely be watching it over what is the high on this candle? Over 149 for push to 150, even push to 155, even 160 is quite possible, with a lot of vaccine news coming out this week and more things to come with that. I think that'd be good for Lily, so definitely be watching for this to break out. I mean, it's been going in a downtrend for weeks. When is this? July. So I mean, it could possibly break this weekly, daily downtrend it's been having for the last few months or several months. As you can see, also point out that you can see like inverted head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder, possibly the neckline be right around the 150-ish area, depending on how you draw it. I mean, it's not an exact number, it's an area, so I would definitely watch it over 150, like I said, to 155, 160. So I think Lily could be ready for a bigger move. Home Depot is another one I get on my watch list. Now, every time Home Depot gets in this 263 area, it likes to bounce. It did here, it did here, and it did here. So I would definitely watch Home Depot for a reversal. I would watch it over, let's say, I would say over 265 to 270. Once it gets into 270, watch for you get a gap fill right here at 275-ish, 274, and that's probably going to be gap support right there on the hourly. So if it does make a big run, it's probably going to stall out right around probably 271 first, but it's going to really have a hard time in the 274 area. If it does manage to break through that, it's probably going to go to 277, even 278. So Home Depot could be a nice reversal play. I don't usually talk about this stock that much because it's extremely expensive, but Booking, BKNG, and now it's one of those stocks that's very expensive, like Amazon, CMG. But anyone that likes to play the more pricey tickers or options, that this one is definitely getting ready to make a move. Now that vaccines coming out and travel is kind of commencing again, this could definitely start getting more interest and take off. So if it does manage to get over this high of 21, so let's say 2139, it's going to probably push to 2200, even 2300 possibly. So Booking has a habit of when it breaks out, like right here, it has a strong move. So it is definitely in breakout territory right here. Obviously in the daily, could break out. And with hourly, hourly, you get an ascending wedge right here. If you have to draw it, there's the line, and then here's the rising, the ascending triangle part right there, making higher lows, and it's flat topping. So I would definitely be watching Booking for a big move to probably 22 to 2300. Now on the bearish side, I have, let's see, start at the top. Cat. Now Cat had a strong day on Friday, and it's got a huge bearish divergence going on. I'm not saying that it's going to fall right now, but I definitely keep an eye on if the market's weak. Cat can retrace. I mean, look how disconnected is the RCT trend line right here on the hourly. Anytime it gets away from it quite a bit, it comes back to retest it. So I would definitely watch it under the 180, 150 for a push down to the 178. I mean, actually 180, then 178, then the 170. 177 area, and then 175. I mean, this is just an incredible run. I mean, going from $90 to 192, that's a 100% move in since the pandemic broke out. That's just crazy. Roku is another one. Roku just keeps going and going and going, and it's diverging right here. You can just actually right in here. Oh yeah, right here. The RSI is diverging here, but the MACD is diverging right there and right up here. So I think that it's going to come back. I mean, look at the RCT trend line on the weekly. I mean, there is such a huge distance between that and the price action that it's going to have to come down eventually. I'm not saying that Roku is going to come down to 180. I mean, obviously it can chop around and come back down, and the line is pointing up. So I mean, it could easily just chop around and pull it towards it. So I mean, it'd take a while to get there, but I mean, I still think that it's going to come back down. I mean, right here, got disconnected from it, and in a week or two, it just dumped. So anytime it gets really far away from this trend line right here, it acts as a magnet and comes back down. So I would watch Roku short under 289, I would say, and for a push to 280, then gap support, which is, you know, at the 270 area. And if it does manage to have a big sell-off, watch the 254 area down to 238-ish. But that's my thinking. I mean, got so many bearish divergence going on. It's disconnected from the trend line that it's gonna come back and just retest it eventually. So whether it be this week or not, I have no idea. We'll have to watch it and find out. Fedex, I mean, this thing just keeps going. I mean, same thing. I mean, this is so far disconnected on the IC10 trend line. So and you know, the RSI, I mean, it's diverging even on the weekly, on the MACD histogram, I mean, and their RSI and the stochastics. I mean, when it's diverging on the weekly, that's usually a big sign that something's going to happen. Same thing with, I mean, you can look right here, it's going higher and the RSI is dropping, and I think it's, you know, 300. It topped out at 298.98, so it got close to 300. So I would watch it for short underneath 293 for push to, let's see, 288, then 285 and 282ish, 280 area. So I'm not quite sure how far it would drop if the market's weak, but I definitely can see 280 possibly. I mean, if it's a real bad week and the market really sells off bad, you could even see 260 on the daily. So, but like I said, I'd watch it underneath 293 for a push down. Now QCOM, another one that just keeps going and going. I mean, there's so many divergences going on, and they're showing up on all my scanners on different time frames and on all the indicators. So when they show up on all three indicators, that's usually a big sign that something's going to end up happening soon. So that's why Cat, Roku, and Fedex are showing up. And basically my whole bearish list is a really strong stocks. It's just going insane. That's showing up on all three of my indicator divergences. So I would watch short probably under 155 on the QCOM, push to 150. We actually got 152, then 150, and if it does manage to break that, you get gap support right here at the 142 area, 140 area. It'll probably end up bouncing there, because I mean, it did test it right here once, but I mean, it's already up at 158. I mean, if it does make it this low, it's probably going to try to bounce a little bit before going lower. But if the market is really weak for whatever unknown reason, or any other circumstances, that I would watch it under 140 for a gap fill to 130 if the market's really weak. The market, let's see, let me look at there's a thing I use on stockcharts.com. It's called, you have to use the $. It's CPCE. It's at like 0.39, and usually when it gets below 0.39, .40, that usually end up seeing a big correction or a drop at least, and it's been hovering under .40 almost for the last few days last week. So the market could see a pullback. What the news will be, I have no idea. I'm sure that they'll pick some kind of narrative or some kind of news that the market will react to, and then these stocks that are like Cat, Roku, Fedex, QCOM, and Disney, which is the next one, that they'll end up probably getting hammered the most because of the divergences and stuff like that and the oversold conditions. I mean, look at QCOM. I mean, it's up at 80 right now, and the RCT trend line on the weekly is so far disconnected, and it was over 80 right here, and it had a sharp pullback, and right here it got over got close to like 76 and pulled back a little bit. Same right here. So it pulled back a tiny bit right here when it was up over the 70-ish area, but there's just massive divergences going on. So Disney is the last one. You know, Disney on the weekly even almost double topped. It did close above it, making all-time highs, but you have a rising wedge right here. I mean, you can draw it right there. I can draw it for you if you can't see it. So whoops, drawing tools. You got this right here. Sorry, you get all these lines. You got, you can say right here, draw it right off the wick. It's a rising wedge right there. It's usually bearish, and if it gets below 150, it's probably going to have a big drop. Let me get these things out of here. So yeah, so if it does get below, I mean, you could even short it underneath 152, but 150 would be a good area to really get in there and watch it drop to 147, 145, even the 142, 143 area, you should say. This whole area is going to be strong support, so if it does end up dropping, it's probably going to end up holding right here. But if it doesn't, you get a gap right down here in the 140 area and in the 136, and then you got gap support at 134, 135-ish area. But it'd have to have a pretty big sell-off for that to happen. It can happen. I mean, it does happen, but we'll have to see if it will actually happen or not. So that is going to do it for the watch list. Like I said, the bearish ones are very, very strong stocks. I'd wait for confirmation of those levels in the market's week before jumping in, because it could just keep going higher and higher with all this hopium going on in the market. So that's going to do it for the watch list, and thank you for watching.